Hi, I'm Rachel Losser, and welcome to Big Project Energy. I am super excited to talk to you today. One of the things that we wanted to talk about was just this concept of big project energy and sort of what is it, what isn't it, and how do I think about big project energy? Because I think at face value, it can come across as sort of egotistical or maybe a little tongue in cheek, if you will. But I do think that there's a lot to be said about the confidence that comes with that phrase. And I really think about any time a new project manager or a more junior project manager comes to me, oftentimes this phrase sort of fully encompasses big project energy, really encompasses the full scope of what they need to go out and do. It's sort of a weird job because no one really reports to you, but you're responsible for outcomes, you're responsible for driving business value. So, yeah, it's just a weird kind of fun profession that I think is worth exploring. So, when I'm talking to someone like that and we're thinking about what makes a PM successful, I also think about what makes our job hard but needed because there's so many different aspects to being a project manager. And when it's done well, it is so seamless and it's not really visible or known, a lot of the times. So there's a lot that goes into sort of big project energy that happens behind the scenes. And I'll say a good sort of example or illustrative example of that is if I were to just assign a project manager to go write a timeline, something that would be pretty foundational to what a project manager should be doing, the results of what that PM actually delivers could be very different. So if one project manager just goes off in the corner, writes their timeline, comes back and says, here's what we're going with, they're gonna see a very different level of success than a project manager that goes back, thinks about the timeline, thinks about the critical steps in the process, goes and meets with all the different teams, gets their buy-in, gets their input, reviews the plan, re-reviews the plan, reviews the plan with stakeholders, gets everyone aligned. The outcome of what that PM is delivering is going to be very different than the first one who just did everything in a silo by themselves. And the authority and relationship with which they can approach the actual delivery of the project is going to be very different too. So it's such a nuanced thing. And even though both are technically delivering the same thing, like they could have technically delivered the same project plan, it's almost like the process is just as important as the deliverable itself and is a huge factor to the success. And I think that's why the project management space is so nuanced because, and so, kind of specific to talk about, because you could literally give me a deliverable and it could still be not what I wanted if the process along the way wasn't good, And I think that's quite different from other fields, such as accounting, for instance. The books are the books. You've sort of delivered the final result, or math in a lot of different professions where, the final answer is celebrated more than the process itself. So, yeah, it's just a kind of an interesting, very nuanced, specific field. And to be successful, it really takes experience and understanding people, honestly. So let's talk about some other, kind of going back to the initial conversation, what makes our job hard? What's it take to be successful? What are things that folks should maybe avoid? When I think about bad project manager personas, I think everybody can think of those people. If you've ever had the opportunity to work with a project manager, a lot of folks can think of those bad personas. For example, the historian. Somebody who really isn't looking forward, somebody who really isn't managing. All they're doing is looking back and sort of reporting the news, if you will, or reporting the history of what's happened since the last update. Or another bad persona example would be a taskmaster. It's somebody who's just going through the checklist, just going through the tasks, but they don't really understand the importance of the tasks or how they relate. And that can also be very frustrating and also sort of devalue the work, because if everyone feels like they could have just gone in and done an update themselves and maybe it would have been better, if they did it that way, then you're not really getting the value that you want. So what's it take to be successful? What's it take to be great? I think one piece of the puzzle is you're managing so many people. You're managing so many aspects of a project, especially once you get into bigger projects. You could be dealing with project teams that are hundreds of people. And so managing that can be really tricky, especially if they're all talking amongst themselves. If you start to diagram that map of people and communication, it gets to be very overwhelming. There's a lot to be done to manage the people. And how do you also manage their focus and attention and keep it in the right place and sort of manage down the chain, right, of people that you need to manage so that you're getting the results that you need, but then also managing up to your stakeholders and executives and giving updates in a way that are meaningful to them while still knowing all the details of everything that's happening. Like you're really straddling all these different worlds and all these different updates, and it can be quite a challenge. Another huge aspect of project management success is just establishing your authority. And this is very tricky and very nuanced, and really where that big project energy comes in, because you have to do it in a way where you're not presenting with a big ego, you're not presenting as a know-it-all, you're not presenting as bossy, right? Or telling everyone what to do, because that's not going to be perceived well. But at the same time, you're still establishing your authority, you're taking the time to establish trust, and you're creating your own power and trust in a way. And a lot of the times the respect you get is the respect that you earn. So a huge part of big project energy is creating that knowing and creating that space of authority where people can come to you as the project lead. One of the ways that I really think of that helps do that is asking intelligent questions that don't remove your confidence or authority. And I think there's a lot of different aspects or a lot of different ways to go about these things. And I wanted to start to explore this topic today, but there's really not any one thing that makes that big project energy. It's all these little pieces that assemble into a whole that is your big project energy. So like I was saying, creating your authority, establishing an air of confidence without coming across as cocky or egotistical, having some baseline knowledge in the area that you're project managing or putting in the time with your stakeholders to learn and understand. All of those little things add up, and that's what really makes your big project energy. I'm super excited to explore all of these topics further in later episodes. We're definitely going to be bringing on project management or business guests that can help add some context to all of this. We are super excited to dive into the nitty-gritty more of specific tools or specific methods, maybe even get into some war stories. So I'm super excited to explore all of that. I, my entire life and into my professional career, have really felt strongly about project management, not even just as a set of tools or a methodology, but just more of a life skill or philosophy and a way that I approach things. I jokingly say that I can PM my way through anything because I feel like that's true. There's a lot of different skills to a project manager that apply to all the other aspects of life, even just, going to get groceries or spending time with friends or things like that, where I really feel these skills transfer into other areas and really enrich my ability to interact in other parts of life. And it sounds silly to say I think of my friends as stakeholders sometimes and, kind of nerdy, but that is the truth. And I really love being able to kind of use this in other aspects of my life. And that is why I'm super excited to talk about it, because there's a professional aspect, but there's such a nuanced, specific, kind of lovely aspect to the project management profession and culture and skills that I just think really could enrich anyone's life. So that's what it's all about, is big project energy. It's having fun nerding out about PM stuff. It's learning more and just getting to know this crazy job and how you can use it in your work or in everyday life or in whatever you think fits for you. Thanks so much for listening. We're super appreciative of everyone that joins and follows along. Please reach out to us. Our email's in our show notes if you have any questions or ideas for some topics you'd like us to look at. I'm really excited to bring future bonus episodes like this where we can unpack some things and really get into it. And thanks so much.